Hey guys, in this video I want to talk about my experience in Japan, and before I get into the Japan story, I have to give you guys a little bit of a backdrop about how I got to Japan in the first place. Well, um, just to give you guys a little bit of a backstory, it was an international relation major in university. So for my major, I had to have an internship and at least my concentration for at least 200, I think it was like 250 hours that I had to have for the internship. But I was just scattering around my city. I live in Atlanta, by the way, so I wasn't able to really find like a lot of stuff. But I was searching everywhere. I was like so desperate to find an internship in my city. I was so desperate at some point. I was even looking at some Buddhist temples. I applied for this Indian one near where I live at. I remember I went there. I went with my dad, by the way, because this is before I had a car. So I had to rely on my dad taking me to this internship. I mean, to go to this Buddhist temple to possibly, try to get an internship there. And I walk up there, and this Buddhist monk, or like, no, I'm sorry, like Hindu temple. This one monk, and he just like looks at, I mean, like I go up there and I ask, hey, so is there a receptionist possibly in here where because I'm looking for an internship, and I told him that I'm an international relation major, and I explained that I have to have an internship in my concentration, and I had to have an internship related to something Asian. And he was like, dude, like he was kind of like calm. He was calm, but he was kind of confused. Like, so why am I here? He asked, was I Hindu? And I said no, but I said that I have studied that in university, and I said that I'd be very interested in interning at your temple. And I gave him my information. I wrote it down on a card. He never hit me back up, by the way. So, I mean, I'm not really too stressed about it because I ended up getting the internship in Japan. And then the other one, I drove to the location. And I don't know, I guess they were closed for the day, or they were closed because bad weather. Because I remember it was like kind of like raining. It was kind of like a dim day. Um, but anyway, with the whole Japan experience, I remember I was asking my counselor, so what do I do exactly? And she was, oh yeah, just apply for anything Asian related. I'm like, okay, yeah, that seems kind of like racist. And I'm like, okay, so I ran with it, and I tried doing it, it didn't work. So that's how I got to apply for jobs online related to. I just typed into, I think I used like ChatGPT or something. I said like look up Asian related internships, and I was so desperate. I said that, hey, even if you have to pay, even if I had to pay for the internship, I don't have a problem doing it, because I was so desperate to graduate. Because I remember at that time, because I was already delayed a semester because I couldn't be like, as I wasn't at my university, because my university had like these stupid ass classes that I had to take, that I had to specifically be at the university to take the classes. So I ended up missing a whole semester because I couldn't get my dorm, because I had to be specifically at the university to take that. Because but guess what? Here's the caveat. They were only offered one semester a year. That's so freaking crazy. You're having these major classes and you're only offering them once a year. That's like some life-changing type of shit. So I was like, okay, no, fuck that. I'm not trying to be in university a whole calendar year. I ran the Japan shit, and I was like, okay, dude. Like I went to my parents and I was like, okay, so here's the thing. I ran all my options out. Like, I've expanded all my options. I talked to my counselor. She said that basically you're on your own, dude. So what are we gonna do about this? And then they were kind of frustrated at the time, because they were like, yeah, man, this is kind of like crazy. You're gonna have to do all this. Is there a way you could get this substituted? And there was a way, but I had to present some sort of like a crazy ass essay, and that seemed a little wild to me. And then what I experienced in Japan, like to be quite honest, I'm so fucking glad I didn't do like this thesis statement or whatever. I had to present like a whole, basically a doctoral statement. It was so fucking crazy to me. My counselor was basically like, yeah, dude, don't really run that, because that's not really a good idea, because it'll be just as hard. And then if you have to present it to a board, and then you have to get the idea approved first and all that shit. So I was like, dude, let me choose the easiest option. So yeah, that's how I just ran the Japan thing. And I went to the website, and they had multiple countries. They had Korea, they had Japan. And I remember the year before, I went to Korea for my study. I forgot to explain that too. I had to also have I had to have a study abroad, and I had to have an internship for my major. So I went to Korea a year beforehand, and then I had to also go to Japan too. So my parents were like, okay, dude. That's why they were already kind of like looking at me like kind of side eye. Like, we're not trying to spend this type of money necessarily, but they were like, okay. They were with me when I explained it to them, when they were like, when I was like, okay, so do we basically want to be in school a whole calendar year for some unnecessary BS, or to just pay for this internship and just get it over with? And my parents was like, yeah, let's just choose the latter option, just get it over with, because this is just some BS, just continuously doing this. And they felt like at some point the school was kind of not really guiding us that much, because I went to a school that was kind of in the middle of nowhere. My parents kind of viewed the administration as kind of incompetent and kind of lazy at times, but that's like a story for another time. But anyway, yeah, man, like when I was going to Japan, I remember like the flight, I was prepping for the flight, and I remember the morning beforehand, I remember telling myself like, oh yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and like download a whole bunch of movies on Netflix. I don't even remember what I watched exactly, but I was just trying to just cram as much stuff on Netflix. And I think I even had YouTube Premium at the time, so I downloaded as much stuff as possible. And I was like, dude, I ran this. And honestly, that was a good idea in principle, because like a lot of times, like I'll download a whole bunch of stuff, and I'll do it like pretty much like last minute. Like I'll do it like the night beforehand, and then like I'll just get so tired, and then I'll forget to come back to like download a whole bunch of other stuff. And then like the morning I'll be scrambling, I'm going to the airport trying to put my stuff on, and I was only able to download like a few seasons of like stuff, like enough, like I mean like maybe like one or two episode, half a season of some show. I mean, like it was enough to get me through the flight. I didn't even like really even watch that much stuff, because I slept half the flight. Yeah, it was like 14 hours, like, so I slept 7 hours, and then the other half I watched all my shows, and I was just bored as fuck. I didn't really do anything. And yeah, when I got to the airport, I remember, I forgot like how the print, like, oh yeah, like how it was set up was I was staying in a hostel, and like it was like a hostel some sort of way, like was the hostel combined with giving people internships, and it was like a outreach agency somehow. I don't know, like it was like reaching out to like businesses, and I guess they would get the money from them somehow, and they had like some sort of like an exchange to make money off of these people, because it was like mostly just young people there. I mean, not everyone there was in on the internship, so that was like why I was like kind of confused. Everyone there was actually just there with the hostel, and everyone was European, and just a whole bunch of Germans. I mean, the hostel was okay. I met a couple of people that were decently cool. But if you don't know this about Germans and freaking hostels, I feel like a lot of times you'll go somewhere with a whole bunch of Germans, and French people can kind of, French people, specific ethnicities, everyone kind of does this to a certain extent. If there's a whole bunch of that ethnicity there, they'll, I'm not gonna say exclude other people, but they'll not include you as much, and they'll be speaking German. Even though I know it, you guys speaking English too. It's kind of like a weird situation too, right? Because, um, I know if even if you're in a situation where everyone is mostly of that ethnicity, and you guys, yeah, you guys don't maybe speak as good English, but if there's a couple of people that speak English or they speak another language in the audience, like, I think that it would help as far as communication in that situation to just speak English, even if it's just like one or two people, to make them feel included in that situation. To be quite honest, well, to be fair, and you're gonna be having back and forth banter, so I could kind of see like where German and English is kind of like included. But dude, pretty much they'll just speak German the whole time. And I made friends at the hostel with this one English dude where he kind of just he moved out after like a couple of weeks, and I think he got in like some sort of a situation with the people at the hostel, and he wasn't allowed to come back because he skipped a night somehow, and he came back like really like drunk one night, and yeah, like he just like overstayed, and I think he snuck in somehow. I forgot the whole backstory to it, but it was like kind of like a wild situation. I actually helped the dude move out, and because he actually found a new place to stay, because he found this because he found this job that he works with somehow, and he was basically accepting reduced pay in order to have a place to stay at. So that's what his whole situation was. And I met this Hungarian dude, and I met this Hungarian dude, which was actually pretty cool. I didn't like really start hanging out with him until like for after about the first month or so. But pretty much those were the only people I hung out with the hostel. And I hung out with the Germans every once in a while, but I kind of just got whiff of the environment that they were just not really that cool. Yeah, and they just didn't really like include me in that many shit. They would just have like their own type of things going on. I mean, to be fair, I was working basically a full-time fucking job, and everyone else there was just like on some holiday European type of fuck shit, enjoying their type of lives, and I was just slaving in already while I was in university at a 9 to 5 fucking job. Like, I'm not even fucking joking. So I feel like, yeah, that was like my huge experience with that. I haven't even gotten to the kindergarten part. So at the kindergarten, it was cool. It was just like a basic type of structure. I met this American teacher. His name was like, I mean, I might as well just like say his name. His name was like Lamar. And he was a pretty cool guy. He had traveled around the United States. And yeah, I was pretty open to having like a good experience. They didn't really know where to include me in the exact environment. That's like another thing too. With the whole internship process, I kind of felt like they didn't really like know where to include me, and I was just kind of just floating around the environment, trying to look busy, embarrassingly enough on the fucking internship. Dude, I actually fucking hated that shit. It was like, I didn't necessarily hate it, like, for the sense that, like, I was like, oh my fucking god, like, yeah, this shit, like, fucking sucks. But, like, yeah, that shit, like, sucked decently amount. Like, and then I wasn't getting paid for it at all. I was only getting paid for, like, my reimbursement for the train ride. And then, dude, like, that's, like, shitty experience, bro. Like, I do feel like that did reduce my Japan experience. And yeah, I mean, like, more or less, I mean, this is gonna be kind of like a summarization video, and I'm probably gonna go into details about my Japan experience in a later video. But yeah, the internship was like decent, like it was okay. I had to kind of like just look busy. It was just like boring as fuck. Like sometimes I would like sweep. They had me buffer the floor sometimes, which I don't know what the fuck. I would teach the kids English for the after school program that they had running. Dude, I was like fucking running it. Like every fucking day I had to be there at 10 o'clock from 10 to 7. That was a lot. And, I tried to plan a lot of stuff after work, which I was able to, fit a lot of things within my Japan experience, even though I was working all the time. Um, I, basically the days that I wasn't working, I mean, like, well, I was drinking. Well, and then even the days that I was working, I was drinking. So pretty much every day after work for my whole Japan experience, I pretty much just drink after work, drink on the weekend, and that was my whole like Japan experience. And I might party, and I had to mention this one point too. I feel like this is not mentioned. This should be talked about enough. The nightlife in Japan, man, it is kind of desolate, man. Like the nightlife, it's 98% men, maybe 95% men on a good day. And I'm talking about as soon as a woman walks in the room, all eyes are on her, all the attention are on her. And for some reason, I feel like in Japanese society, especially in nightlife, they're more apt to cold approach, because it feels like if you don't cold approach a woman initially, like right at the moment, you're gonna lose your opportunity. So like, a lot of guys are in like that mode to immediately approach girls, and there's kind of like weird dynamics too, where you'll see guys on the train, they'll be with their buddies with a whole bunch of other dudes that are Japanese as well, like a whole bunch of, I don't know why I put that, of course they're gonna be Japanese, right? And I don't know if this is like this kind of like, it seemed like it was a common enough trend, because I remember I asked a Japanese guy about this, because it's where Japanese guys will get a girl super drunk, and at the end of the night they'll take her home, or it seems like they'll have the intention to take her home. And then sometimes you'll see these guys on the train, and you don't necessarily know what happens with those situations, but there'll be 2-3 guys with one girl, and that feels like a little weird. Like, yeah, maybe they're friends, maybe like in some situations that's like a girlfriend type of situations, but how the guys cluster around the girls just feels just insidious to me. And yeah, like, so what the local told me, he said that, yeah, that actually is a trend where guys will try to get girls drunk to basically, like, not date rape, but just rape them, take them home. And yeah, like, that's the whole situation. Japan, it's an awesome country, but it's kind of like weird with trying to form relationship type of dynamics. And I did have a great time in Japan, and I did have a great experience, but I felt like yeah, my like whole, I felt like Japan, I was only there for, let me put this out there. I was like only there for like, I remember from February to May, so I was only there for a couple of months. So I don't have like the full Japan experience, but just from my experience, I kind of just caught whiff of the vibe that you have to probably make local friends earlier on, and maybe like even try to learn Japanese, which is definitely hard, and it's definitely difficult to immerse in local culture and to learn Japanese. But it feels like if you don't do that earlier on, you're going to be in a situation for years and years and years and years where you're not really having a constant friend group. And that feels like kind of like the sad part about Japan. And I did have the intention, I remember when I was younger, to eventually live in Japan, which is kind of like weird, the reason why I didn't necessarily initially want to go to Japan. But because I had like this whole thing where I was like where I was studying Japanese, and I didn't want to go to Japan until I was decently fluent in Japanese and could speak it. And I was kind of obsessed with this at the time. I would study Japanese 4 to 5 hours a day, man. I'm talking about, I would do my Anki decks. I learned 15,000 words in Japanese, and I still wasn't fluent in Japanese. And at some point, I think it was like in between trying to finish university and doing the internship. So there was like a 9-month period in between that, in between the study abroad, which was in 2023 and 2024. So for like a whole year, I just stopped the whole immersion thing. So I wasn't really in the immersion thing, and I was kind of like out of that whole set of mind. Like I was like, kind of wanted more of like a side of adventure, but like overall I think that I had a good experience with Japan. But I think that I would yeah, kind of reconsider that. It feels like Japan is one of those countries you can't be as reliant on the economy, because it feels like you can kind of be like in a situation where you have a boss that maybe is like borderline abusive, or it's like you just, or maybe they're not abusive, but because of the societal expectations, and then over time, like, yeah, you're not Japanese, but because you're living here for a certain amount of time, there is kind of that dual expectation on you. And yeah, I think that maybe like eventually I could live in a society like that. I mean, like, who knows? I mean, like, I did have a great time, but I don't think that I'm at this stage in my life where I would really, enjoy that. I think that I could find my space in a country like that. And Korea too, because they are both like a similar type of vibe. I should also do a comparison video on them one day, on both Korea and Japan, because they're very similar to me. I mean, like, basically, I mean, it just depends on, I almost think that it depends on which country you had exposure to, which one you may like a little bit more. Because to be honest, I studied Japanese for all these years, but I actually kind of like Korea a little bit more, just because it feels a little more free, and it feels like public transportation is more accessible. But like, who am I to talk? I mean, like, Japan actually is like, has some of the best. I mean, actually has, I think, the best public transportation in the world. But I'm just saying, like, per capita, it just feels like when you're on the ground in Korea, it feels like you can kind of find one every a train station like every 5 minutes, versus Japan. Yeah, I mean, sometimes you can be in a situation where the train station is a 20-minute walk away, which is like more accessible than America, right? But I mean, it's not like how Korea is per se, because Korea is like, dude, every 5 minutes, even in the countryside, every 5 minutes. I'm like, I'm not even BSing. I really do need to make a Korea story, because that's going to be a story for another time. I'm really excited about making that video. But that, anyway, guys, that's probably it for the Japan. Oh, well, that is it for the Japan story for the day. I may expand on it in another day, but I'll see you guys in another video. All right.